Alright, welcome back. So now we want to actually get into the animation. We've got our base character here, we've got a ground, we need to get into the animation. Before we do that, let's just sort of create a rough layer so that we can kind of get our timing done. So I'm actually going to create a new layer here, so I'm just go plus, and give it a name. Let's make a rough one, go. And I might just sort of pull this one down below, smooth it down there. Doesn't really matter. One thing that I'll do as well is I'm going to turn on auto lock inactive layers. And then whatever layer you're on, that one is going to be changeable, but you can't accidentally mess around with the others. So if I click on the ball one now, you'll see that unlocks and then the rough one's locked. Just something that's sort of handy there. Anyways, to do the rough one, I'm just going to go and just grab my pencil here and just draw, I guess, the pen. The idea is obviously we're starting here in line 8, drawing with orange. So stroke thing, that's better. We're starting here in frame 1. Okay, so at the very top, we're going to be at frame 1. We're going to go all the way down to frame 8 here. So at the very bottom, where it hits the ground, that's going to be frame 8. And what we want to do is sort of animate everything in between. Now we're not going to modify it, but we're going to let the computer sort of help us out a bit. But the idea is about halfway, if it's fall, it's actually that's almost at the last frame. As things fall, they increase their velocity exponentially. So it's not a linear fall. We don't sort of break this down into 8 equal spaces. We want to sort of have it accelerate, right? So it sort of starts off slower and then picks up speed. So theoretically, about halfway here would be frame 6, and then halfway here would be like frame 5, and then it just gets a little bit messy here. But frame 4, and then 3 and 2 would be kind of interspersed here. So you're going to get a lot of movement near the end, very little movement at the beginning. Right? So this is going to act as a guide here as we start to animate it. I probably could have drawn it a little bit closer here, but that should be okay. All right. So what we're going to do is basically go to frame 8 and move this guy down. So I'm going to take my little guy here. We're at 1, and we can just sort of scroll along. You can type it in wherever that's on. Go down here. You can set it, or you can move it this way too. Right? Different ways to sort of scrub through your timeline here. I might as well zoom in on this too. So if you hold, you just sort of, what I'm doing there is just moving this over and then just zooming in. So putting my cursor over top, and it will zoom in. We're not going to have too many frames, so just having it zoomed in will give us a little bit better definition there as we try to work our way through. We're going to basically double this, so we're going to be up to 16 frames. Anyways, we're on frame 8, and what I'm hoping to do here is just drag this down. So what I'm going to do is go into edit mode, make sure I've got all this selected here. Now make sure I'm on the ball layer. Okay, so that's important. Select this guy. Okay, so I just clicked and dragged the ball around it. And I'm just going to grab it. So G, or I can just use these tools. So maybe I'll just use these tools to make life easier. And I'm going to move it down so it's just sort of on the ground. Okay, and now you can see, so frame 1 and all the way through, it's there. And then on frame 8, it's on the ground. Now just to sort of, finish this up here, we're going to scale it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch it vertically, okay, and then also squeeze it a little bit. Now we're going to play around with this shape at the very end, but as it's falling, what's going to happen here is it's going to sort of stretch out. And then the last frame we will squish it, but as it's falling, it sort of goes into this more teardrop shape. And I might have to just move this up a little bit so it's on the ground kind of thing. Okay, so something like that. So what we've done is basically drawn the start frame and the end frame. And what we're going to do here is move our mouse in between. Okay, so our timeline in between, or scrub back. And then we can interpolate. And interpolate means finding the spots in between. And so the computer's going to sort of do the work for us here. Now, we will use linear You could mess around. This is really, like I was mentioning, an exponential. It's an x squared, velocity squared kind of thing going on here with the acceleration. But yeah, we're just gonna work with what we've got here. So I'm gonna interpolate and then sequence. And so what you'll find is that we've got all these frames in between. Okay. Now, one thing you'll notice is that the onion skinning has sort of disappeared. It shows just one above and one below. It's nice to sort of see everything. So what we can do is you can come back into your panel here, and you'll see there's onion skinning. The mode here, keyframes, that's okay. We'll leave it like that. Filter type by all, okay. And then what we can do is we can say how many keyframes before and after. Well, we'll basically see the whole thing here. So we'll put 7 and 7. And then that way we can just kind of see what's going on. All right. So now you can see the start, and you can see to number 8, and everything's kind of there. And in fact, if we hit play, right, it just goes down. Yeah, that's one thing. It keeps going and going. It's going to end at 250. I'll just set that to 20 for the moment. So at least we'll see the balance, right? So the one way there. Good. So at least we've got a start. So now we need to get back in here and just sort of clean up the animation and sort of match up with our scale here. So I'm going to go back to frame 2. There it is. And so like we mentioned before, that there was very little movement here. So if it's selected, which it is, if it's not selected, pressing A will select all of it, which is just that on this frame, because the rough layer is locked. So I'm just going to pull it up, and we're just going to have it slightly below frame 2. Okay, or frame 1, sorry. Frame 2 is just going to be slightly below frame 2. I'm going to go to the next keyframe, and then press A again to select it all, and then just do the same thing, where now it's just slightly below that one. So maybe a little bit more, but not much more. 4 is going to be similar. So I'm going to press A to select it, drag it up, and just a little bit more of a gap. 5. Oops, sorry, just A. A little bit more. There. 6. Okay, and drag it up. So that's even more there. 7 is the biggest, right? So A, and then just dragging it up so that we're basically lined up with our halfway point. And there we go. Okay, so we've got this more of a dynamic, realistic sort of acceleration here. It's not linear. It's sort of slow at the start. And you'll notice that the shape is nicely changing too as it goes. Now, obviously it's going to bounce back up. We could redo all this going the other way, but an easier way is just to duplicate it. So what I'm going to do is make sure that these are selected down here. So I believe if I just press A, I've selected all the keyframes here. I'm going to duplicate them. So I can duplicate them by Control D. And just see here. Let me just try this again. So A is unselected. And it just actually, I'm going to try B. Press the box select those. Shift D. There we go. Sorry, Shift D. I think I pressed Control D. There's Shift D to duplicate. Now, if I just sort of move them over here for the moment, that's okay. But the issue is that they're going the wrong way. We need to reverse them. Now, just to make sure I've got enough room here, I don't want to get them truncated. Let me just pop that up to 50 there. What I'll do is I want to reverse it around this frame here. So basically, I'm going to scale it and get it go the opposite way. So I put it at the very end here, and I'm going to scale it. So I'm going to do a few shortcuts here. So I'm going to scale it around the x-axis. So I press S, X, and to reverse it, I'm going to type in -1. And what you'll notice is that it flipped around. So again, that was S for scale, X to flip it around the x-axis, and -1 to invert the scale. And I've got them all here. I think they're still all selected. If I press G, I can grab all of them. And I'm just going to slide them right there. So what we should notice now is that it comes in, hopefully, it bounces back up, which it is. Good. Okay, so we've basically got our animation, okay? We need to do a little bit more, obviously, at the bottom there to give it a squish when it hits that bottom part. But I think we'll do that in the next video. Make sure you save.